Okay, welcome back. I know, here we are. Welcome back. Episode 2, Series 2 of Procurement Finance Coffee Break. And as you can tell, we haven't moved very far because, as always, our ability to, stick to a plan and meet up and do the coffee break sat in the same place failed, which is probably a very good reason why we should then talk about habits. And we were both inspired. Well, actually, I wasn't inspired because I don't want to admit to my bad habits, but Claire very wisely shared her thinking on a great book, Atomic Habits by James Clair, and we'll put the details in the footnote. Do you know what? Much as I'd love to claim that we are older, wiser, and more capable, if I'm being honest, I've still got a whole series of dreadful habits, like not sticking to timings and plans, which drives Claire mad. But you know what? Personal and professional life, right? There's just, sometimes we all want to transform ourselves, and then we've got these big ideas about dieting or getting our email done or, thinning out our diary or whatever it is that we want to do to change our frustrations, and we start and then we don't go anywhere. And that's why I think actually this book was so interesting to us both, because it came at it from a really, really different perspective. But we're going to get onto that in a minute. So, because obviously I'm perfect and I don't have any bad habits, I'm going to ask Claire, I'm going to ask you, what is it that why is it that habits have such a big impact on our lives, whether they're good habits or bad habits? Why is it that that we even talk about them, right?
In his book, James Clair is basically saying that, basically everything that we do in life is based in habits. The way we work, what we what we eat, everything is based on automatic habits. And we know because like just take phone use, for example, your mobile phone, that your brain will go into automatic routines. It goes into sat nav, almost automatic routines, like the fact that you'll catch yourself looking at your phone again and you don't even realize you're doing it, but you realize that you're scrolling through the news or social media or whatever.
Doom scrolling.
Yes, so this is why James is saying basically habits are so impactful on our daily behaviors, and those daily behaviors basically drive the outcomes in our lives. For example, if let's say, at the start of the new year, a lot of us make New Year's resolutions, and they're typically like, I'm going to diet, I'm going to lose 2 stone or whatever, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to come fit, I'm going to start baking my own bread, or I'm going to travel more, whatever they are. I'm going to stop smoking. I don't smoke, but these are all examples. And often, because these goals are basically like a big transformation of how we currently operate. They're not our usual routines. If I was going to say, like, I'm going to run a marathon, I don't run on a regular basis now for me to consider running a marathon. But if I did, obviously, I need to run on a regular basis, and that would need to be a habit.
Right. Yeah.
So basically, that's where James is saying the power of habits are, and if rather than saying, right, I am going to lose 2 stone and then trying a radical diet and failing at it, he's basically saying, well, if you can make a 1% improvement on a daily basis or weekly basis, and then build on that over time. Like, for example, the first thing is maybe, I will have a healthy breakfast. Let's say that's the first thing you'll commit to. From now on, I'm not going to say I'm going to eat perfectly, but I am going to say I'm going to introduce a healthy breakfast every morning, and then you do that for so long until it becomes a habit, and then you think, oh,
Right.
well, that's become a habit now, so maybe I'm going to introduce a healthy lunch.
Yeah,
So
got you. Yeah,
his concept is basically make these sort of 1% improvements,
yeah,
until over time you've transformed your habits. So maybe the next one is, I'm not going to have any unhealthy snacks, you know I know 5 days of the week, and I'll just have some chocolate at the weekend or something like that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the whole his whole
Oh,
premise,
it's
is
really
why
cool.
the habits are so
Yeah.
powerful. It's basically these sort of 1% improvements over time
Mm,
that build to transformational change in the
mm.
end, that is not so hard to achieve than doing this
Yeah,
massive step change.
yeah, right. No, it's really cool.
Right, so got a question for you. So now we know
Yeah,
the immense power of
yeah,
habits, and why is, if we can tweak our habits, they
mm.
can build good positive impacts to our lives. Um, what sort of strategies would you
About
advise? Because
me.
I know you've read a bit of the book yourself. So
Right.
how can you
Yeah.
summarize
Well,
building good habits?
well, this is in my skim of the book. My first mistake was that big changes, atomic. I immediately think nuclear explosion, atomic. But actually, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about atomic as in small, atom size, small change. And it's actually what I really, when you sit back and you look at it, you think, actually, this just makes complete sense. And what he talks about is four really simple things, which is one, atomic as in tiny, just make tiny changes. So, for example, if you want to read more and you say, I'm going to read a book a week, everyone fails. But if you say, I'm going to read a page a day, you can do that. And if you say, I'm going to do 50 press ups, and you can't do 50 press ups and you lose heart, don't just do 2 press ups. Because if you do that and you do it every day, exactly his point, you'll be amazed how quickly you're reading 2, 3, 4 pages, 2, 4, 6, 8 press ups. So by setting it small to start with, baby steps, you make it easier to achieve. And the second thing is building it into your daily routine. So, if when I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is come downstairs and make a cup of tea. So, if you're feeling up for it, why not, while the kettle's boiling, read the page or do your 2 press ups? Because in your head, every day you come down and you boil the kettle, you're building those things into your existing routine, and therefore it just becomes as natural as clockwork. I'm just going to do it then. And then, the third thing he talks about, which is lovely, is, my biggest challenge is procrastination. If I can delay something to the last minute, I'll delay it to the last minute. So he said, look, make sure that the thing that triggers you to do the activity is really obvious. So that boiling the kettle idea, flicking the switch down is a pretty good trigger point for saying, right, time to read or time to do a press up. And then, the bit that I think everybody forgets all the time is celebrating success. And you might say, well, look, going onto my social media and saying, woohoo, I did 2 press ups, I'm going to get ridiculed. But actually, you won't. Most people, and especially the people that really know you, who will probably understand why you're trying to do that, will go, yeah, good on you. And all it takes, and by the way, this is a tip for the Procurement and Finance and Coffee Break, all it takes is a few likes or a few thumbs up, and everyone gets, and it feels really good. So it was those 4 things. Start small, build it into your existing routine, make sure that what triggers you to do it is really obvious so you don't forget. And thirdly, don't be afraid to say well done to yourself and celebrate it. Because if you do those things, it very quickly not only builds in scale, but your sense of achievement. And that just strikes me as completely brilliantly good sense. However, much as Claire and I are paragons of perfection, I think it's fair to say we have both, like every other human being on the planet, got our fair share of bad habits. And I've already declared one of mine, lastminute.com procrastination. So, I mean, you've read the book a lot more than I do, but what did James have to say about how do we break the bad habits that have clearly become ingrained?
Yeah. So I've actually done some of these things. So I still do have, to some degree, a bad habit of scrolling on social media too much, and also news apps.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did do even before I read this book is just I didn't delete the apps, but I just put the apps in a folder so they weren't on the front screen of my
Oh,
page. So it meant that I had another step to do if I wanted to look at the app. So that did help
yeah.
me. But obviously, if that hadn't helped, then one of the things I could do is just delete the apps, which mean that I'm actually putting a barrier in place.
Yeah, good
So,
idea.
so one of the things he says, make bad habits difficult through barriers or inconvenience. Another
Right.
thing that I do, again before I read the book, is I do have a love for chocolate, like a lot of women. So if I don't
I
have
can't
lots of
believe you're saying
chocolate
that.
in the house, yeah, you can almost imagine me in one of those like Dawn French moments where I launch myself into a big a big chocolate waterfall. Lovely.
Yeah, no, no.
Yeah, yeah. So a barrier to whatever it is the bad habit is, if possible. So delete bad apps. Don't have
Yeah,
fast
right.
food or bad or food that you don't want to eat in the house.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
if it's that your bad habit is something around work, that you don't keep on top of your emails, which I know a lot of people struggle with, then for example you could schedule time in your diary to read the emails, block time out, so you're actually
Yeah.
managing it that way. So he's suggesting barriers or inconvenience, or doing something. The second thing he suggests is replacing those bad habits with better alternatives or routines. So let's say if you snack when you're bored. Now, I
Yeah.
do have a habit of wanting to munch on popcorn when I'm watching a movie, for example.
Right. Totally legit.
So
Yeah.
if I'm trying to be healthy and I don't want to eat like a ton of toffee covered popcorn with my movie, then maybe I could replace it with let's say I don't know,
Yeah.
a healthy
Yeah,
drink or
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
So
Or even
establishing
just,
that
or
routine.
even, as he said, even just plain popcorn is better than sugar
Yeah.
popcorn, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Or skinny popcorn,
Yeah,
exactly.
whatever it's called. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the third thing he says is reduce exposure to your triggers or cues that spark that bad habit.
Right.
Um, I can't think of any examples of that. Maybe you can think of reducing
No, I
exposure to
can, and
triggers.
actually, it comes down to mobile phone. I mean, one of the things that always gets me is if I get an alert on my phone from BBC or from social media, I'm going to go on my phone. I'm going to look at it. So therefore, I can reduce the trigger by switching off notifications. Because if
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
sat there, even if you just switch the volume off, it's
yeah,
getting rid of that dreaded bing and red dot that makes you go, oh, I wonder what's come up. And then you're in. And then before you know
yeah,
it, you spent half an hour discovering how many llamas there are
exactly.
in China, which is useless. So, but yeah, exactly that. It's about getting rid of the things that you know are going to make you do it.
Mm,
And actually, a good friend of mine was an alcoholic. And actually, the biggest thing to do is just the trigger was being tired and there being visible alcohol. So go
mm,
to bed earlier, and for him, getting more sleep and not having alcohol, visible alcohol, remove two of the triggers that would make him do that. So it can be
mm.
tiny, tiny changes, I think. So yeah, it's a good point.
So you got two. It's got two more tips. The fourth one was to reframe your mindset around bad
Mm.
habits like smoking, eating junk food, or, to your point, procrastination.
Yeah, yeah.
So he says highlights the negative effects clearly rather than rationalizing. So let's say, rather than saying, like, maybe you rationalizing your procrastination is like, oh, it's got a bad habit, but maybe, I'm not saying you do, but maybe you rationalize it by saying, oh, but I'm the type of person that likes to be under pressure to perform. Maybe you rationalize it that.
I've never said.
But I'm just guessing. But maybe you could highlight the negative effects more clearly. Like, you know, I want to be more prepared for, you know, key
I could
meetings
bring this to
or
life.
play sets or something like
I
that.
can actually bring this to life right now. So I had a piece of work to do for a client this morning. I've had all week to do it. My solution was to not do it and then get up at 5:30 and do it before the client meeting. Rationalization, I know I can do that. Negative effect, what on earth am I doing getting up at 5:30 when I've had all week to do, you know, a piece of work? There wasn't even a big piece of work, but the negative effect is had to set the alarm, wake the rest of the house up. I got less sleep. So you're exactly right. It's about focusing on the what happened as a result of the procrastination, rather than sort of saying to myself, hey, listen, I've done this so many times. I'm confident in my ability to do it. It's totally okay, which actually it isn't. So yeah, there we go.
And then the last one, which he gives, is at least that I picked up when I read the book. So just to caveat it, he says that by disrupting patterns and changing your environment and breaking your routine. So, for example, like he says, like, shake up your work location. So, for example, say if you're a person who struggles to be that productive working from home, then obviously, you know, maybe go into the office one day a week extra. You know, it's not saying I'm going to work from the office every single day, but just go into the office more. Or like, for example, if I was particularly struggling in getting a lot of work done, one of the things that I could do to shake up my routine is block out, like, I don't know, maybe 7 till 10 in the morning, because I know that's my peak problem solving time. That's sort of, I know, before lunch in the morning, I know that my ability to problem solve and come up with creative solutions is at its peak. So if I was very busy, I might say, right, I'm going to reschedule my diary a little bit, because I know I'm more productive during those hours naturally. You know, some people are evening people. Some people like doing work more in the evening. I'm better at finding or seeing what the nub of a problem is in sort of that morning period.
Yeah, got you.
So those are the 5 techniques.
Do you know what? I'll give you a funny example on this disrupting your, you know, routine or your environment. You know, at home, my partner and I have a deep-seated love of pretzels, breadsticks, hummus, and other nice dips. So it always is, you know, both of us busy all day working, you know, 6 o'clock, bit of news, out come the snacks, and then eat at 8. And eating the snacks at our age is a bad plan. Lovely as it's a bit like chocolate. Lovely as they are, they don't do any good. And do you know what? It sounds so stupid. All we needed to do was to make it so that we cook dinner at 6. So that instead of cooking dinner at 8, we cook dinner at 6, which means you don't need the snacks, because you're actually focusing on what you're cooking. So just changing the time that we ate eliminated the bad habit of eating the rubbish. Unless the meal's terrible, in which case we eat the rubbish later. So we're not perfect, but you know what I mean. So it's absolutely a great point. It's, you know, if you know that if you drive down a road, you're going to go past a garage where you can buy an ice cream, drive a different way. And don't go past the garage if you know you're going to pull in and have something that you know, some fizzy drink or whatever that you shouldn't be having. So, but this is his whole point. Tiny changes can lead to a much easier ability to break the bad habits. And bring them in. And I guess, look, just to sort of close the session, because I can't recommend the book enough, because actually, even though I've skimmed it, I'm going to read it properly now, even if it's a page at a time. Is, the point that he makes is that habits shape what we are and how effective we are, both in our personal and professional lives. And bad habits cause problems. And, there are some bad habits that can kill, alcohol, cigarettes. If you've got to get rid of that, that's a habit to break. But there's a whole load of good things that can improve the way that you live and the way that you work. And his whole point is, don't do the New Year's resolution Everest target, which you're never going to achieve. Just stick to those things of, right, I know what I want. I'm going to break it into a, what's the lowest I can do? Page of a book, 2 press ups, whatever. Start small, celebrate it, build it into your routine, and make sure that you've got some, like, that trigger point. I switch on the kettle, I read a page. And if you do that small start, just like compound interest, you're away, and you will actually start to build a really good set of habits. So look, I recommend the book, and I think it's got a huge amount of advice.
Yeah, and
So there you
one,
go.
just to finish, one final tip that I would give that I've kind of observed a little bit in the workplace, because people often ask me, like, oh, why do you know a bit about everything?
Right.
Partially my age and the fact that I've done, when I was self-employed, at least I would turn my hand to just about everything. But another tip I would have, I realized just became a habit of mine, and over the years that has a big impact in my professional capabilities, is that every time someone talks about something that I'm not really that knowledgeable, let's say transfer pricing, or AI, or whatever it may be, I will go away and I will read a little bit about it. So by just doing that, whenever someone mentions something, I don't think, oh, I don't know anything about that, and continue my day. If I hear something and they're talking about something in a knowledgeable fashion, and I think, well, I don't really know much about that, and I don't really quite understand them, rather than just continuing my day, I'll either look straight away or just put it on a notepad just to read around that subject. And by doing that over many years of being a professional consultant, it's really mean that I have become very knowledgeable on a lot of topics.
It's wonderful. And curiosity, I think, is a really good habit. Curiosity that allows you, just like you say, just go and do a tiny bit of research. It is wonderful. Right. That brings to a close a thoroughly interesting and, I think, quite useful discussion of how do we form good habits. And, talking of doing research, in the next coffee break, I may not be playing a leading role in the conversation. And I am going to have a very strong coffee as we discuss integrating finance processes for maximum synergy. And you can see my excitement growing. So anyway, it's one of those opportunities where I'm going to get to interview Claire and, get to listen about some of the things that you can really do well. And it builds on that M&A stuff we were talking about, that scaling the function stuff that we've talked about both in series 1 and at the start of this series. Actually, when it comes down to it, you've got to get into the detail and start to make processes work as one. So we're going to have fun listening to Claire about how we could do that. So let's look forward to it. I'm going to get my coffee, and so look, I hope you enjoyed that. We'll put the details of the book in the somewhere on the page. And in the meantime, until next time, bye bye.